Hello everyone. Today our motivational topic is how to deal with unfair criticism and constructive criticism in your life. Handling harsh or personal criticism calmly and professionally. Criticism can be one of the toughest things to face at work. Nobody wants to hear they have done a bad job or that their efforts are not appreciated. But let's face it, we all mess up sometimes, and it's good to know when we have not done our best work so we don't make the same mistakes again. But what about those times you think, hang on, I am not sure what comment is rightly actually? Are you deluding yourself or is the criticism unfair? How can you tell the difference? Well, when criticism is fair, it's likely to be about the action taken and its outcomes, not about the person responsible. It's non threatening, constructive, and respectful. Fair criticism can still sting, but try not to take it to heart. Usually, if criticism is justified, when you take a step back and consider it objectively, you will probably agree with it. So try to use fair criticism as a learning opportunity and move on. But what about unfair criticism? How can you tell when someone has taken it a bit too far? Well, ask yourself, does it seem harsh, broad, or personal? If the answer is yes to any of these, then it's likely the criticism is not warranted. And the ultimate test, does it hold up to scrutiny when challenged? Now, with unfair criticism, constructively while protecting your integrity and avoiding conflict. First, you have to stay calm. If emotions are running high, the situation could get worse. So take a moment, absorb what you have heard, and maintain your cool. You could ask to pause the conversation and come back to it when you are ready. Next, repeat the criticism back to your person to make sure that you have understood them properly and there is no miscommunication open with. So, what you are saying is, and then put it into your own words. This puts the obligation back on the other person to clarify or reconsider their position. Respectful interaction is key. So explore both perspectives, dig deeper into their position, get as much detail as possible, and elaborate on your own thoughts clarity and clearly and respectfully. This will create opportunity to find common ground and solutions. If you still can't find any common ground, then it's time to get out of there. Make a graceful exit by saying something like, I appreciate the feedback and I will think more about what you have said. Draw the interactions to a close politely but with finality. It's never fair for someone to impose their opinion on you when you have not asked for it. So you must be clear about what purpose your critiques serve. So, how do you respond to people who only see your faults, exaggerate the truth, and root for you to fail? You deserve to be able to fight your battles and work on your changes on your own time without pressure to do things on others' pupils' timelines or according to their opinions. When someone unfairly criticizes you, reflecting on what they are saying might be helpful. It could be useful to consider which of your imperfections you are okay with and which you had like to change. If you do this, you won't be so sensitive when another person points them out. How to respond to unfair criticism? The first step when you feel criticized is to get clear about who you are, what you are okay with, and what you are still working on. This allows you to explore how comfortable you are, letting others give you input about your life, even if it's negative, without making you feel like you need to change or defend yourself. Sometimes you put boundaries in place with people in your life and repeatedly ask them to be more respectful of your choices, but they continue to be critical. Maybe you know what you need to work on, but that person just won't let it go. They remind you every chance they get. Not being overly emotional might surprise your critics, allowing them to think more deeply about their words. If this happens, an honest discussion can take place. It's helpful to use language that shows your perspective. For example, I can see how you might get that idea, but allow me to tell you my thoughts also. This indicates that you are open to talking about it and seeing their perspective, which will disarm them and open them up to listening to you. You are less likely to be hurt if you get defensive or disregard their statements. It's natural to react strongly to unjust criticism, and sometimes there is no avoiding it. But if you are constantly getting angry and nothing changes, try this approach. As humans, the natural reaction when criticized is to be defensive. I believe it's important to consider the individual receiving the feedback before offering and communicate in a way they prefer. Because most times people don't have a problem with what you are saying, they just have a problem with how it's been communicated. In my opinion, there is not a one size fit all or even a how to, but the general advice I would give from my personal and professional experience is keep an open mind, my friend. Look at feedbacks as a gift, because without feedbacks, individuals will not be able to see their blind spots, and that will indicate lack of growth. It's easier said than done, but do not allow the mind trick you into thinking that person is being malicious. Responding to constructive criticism without becoming defensive includes active listening, focus on feedback without interrupting, maintain calm, deep breathing helps moderate emotions, acknowledge feedback, express appreciations by thanking the person, reflect, consider feedback objectively before responding, ask questions, seek clarifications to completely grasp criticism, take responsibility for your actions and avoid making excuses. Respond positively by expressing your willingness to improve and outlining strategies to address feedback. These tactics promote growth and constructive communication. Receiving criticism is difficult for everyone, my friend. Try to actively listen, not to respond, but to understand. Ask questions if you don't fully comprehend. Try to quiet your ego for the durations of the feedback exercise. Don't answer right away, but consider setting a check in when you discuss progress. If it is not offered, ask what steps you can take to improve. How you approach the feedback session is critical to its success. You can choose to see it as possible finding fault in your work, or you can see it as people inputting into your ideas. Don't ask what's wrong with my idea. Instead, start the session by asking others, how could you make this project better? This helps to reframe their comments as building on your idea rather than breaking it down. Active listening is key to understanding constructive criticism in your life. Avoid interrupting or reacting prematurely, even if the feedback feels uncomfortable. For example, when a team member points out inefficiencies in a process you implemented, focus on their insights rather than defending your approach. Show engagement by perhaps or paraphrasing their points or asking clarify questions, which demonstrates respect and fosters a collaborative atmosphere, my friend. It's important to be clear about your goals and values. Goals are what you want to achieve. More sales values are how you want to behave, sustainability or outstanding quality. If the feedback gets you closer to your objective without compromising your values, it's good. If it does not do this, it can be set aside. However, you can't judge whether criticism is good or bad without clear goals and values. So do that first. Likewise, your team can't give good feedback unless they know the goals and values. So share it with your groups before you ask for comments. Receiving constructive criticism requires objectivity and objectivity. Listen actively without letting self-doubt cloud your perspective. Acknowledge your progress while remaining open to areas for growth highlighted in the feedback. By managing negatively bias, you can embrace learning opportunities embedded in constructive criticism. Not all feedback is equally actionable, so assess its relevance and validity. If a stakeholder suggests changes to a strategy, evaluate whether the input aligns with your objectives and customer needs. Distinguish between objective and impressions and measurable outcomes, focusing on feedback that enhances adaptability or addresses gaps. This objective approach ensures you integrate meaningful improvements without overacting or overreacting to every critique. If you have shared objectives and values, constructive criticism is rarely negative. As such, it's usually possible to accept it and adjust what you are doing after reflections. Unfortunately, constructive criticism is often used as a term to mask undermining and constructive or destructive comments. To decide which is which, check how much you share values, goals, etc. Most people won't want to give you feedback if it seems to upset you when they share it. As strange as it may sound, it helps to find a way to enjoy the criticism. Try to keep the final outcomes in mind always. By doing this, you will feel better about ideas that change your project for the better. When you think, I feel stupid for missing that, try reframing suggestions as the project will be so cool with that new aspects. It will help you to respond in a more enthusiastic way to changes. Acknowledge the feedback with gratitude and respond calmly, even when clarifying or disagreeing. For instance, if a peer critiques your presentation style, thank them for their perspective and ask for specific examples. For suggestions, maintain a solution oriented tone. Expressions your commitment to improvement. This constructive dialogue builds trust and reinforces your willingness to adapt flexibility in response to challenges. Action is the true test of receiving feedback well. Apply relevant insights to your work and monitor the outcomes. For example, if a client highlights a gaps in communications, implement new tools for processes to improve transparency. Share progress with the person who provided feedback, demonstrating accountability and fostering ongoing collaborations. This proactive approach strengthens both resilience and trust in dynamic environments. Constructive criticism is crucial for growth, though it may stir up negative emotions. Take a moment to acknowledge them without directing them at others. Learn from the feedback, make the relevant improvements, and move on. Don't dwell on the negative moments, because without failing, we'll never, we will never know how to stand back up. Constructive criticism is a step stoning or stepping stones, not a judgment of your worth. Reflect on what you learned and how it enhances your acceptability or adaptability. For instance, use feedback to identify a skill gap and pursue training to address it. By framing the experiences as growth rather than failure, you build resilience and confidence, preparing yourself for future challenges with a more flexible mindset. Share stories where feedback led to significant improvements. For instance, highlight how customer criticism for a product features prompted a redesign that improved satisfactions and loyalty. These narratives emphasize the transformative power of constructive criticism, inspiring teams to embrace feedback as a driver of resilience and innovations. Additionally, normalize seeking feedback proactively to foster a culture to continuous improvements and adaptability. Responding to constructive criticism is to acknowledge your emotions and calm yourself down. Criticism can activate your fight or fight response, which impairs your rational thinking and communications instead of reacting impulsively or defensively. Take a deep breath, count to 10, or ask for a break if you need to. Recognize that your emotions are natural and valid, but don't let them cloud your judgment or interfere with your learning. Responding to constructive criticism is to listen actively and respectfully to the person giving you feedback. Don't interrupt, argue, or dismiss their points. Even if you disagree or feel hurt, show that you are interested and attentive by maintaining eye contact, nodding, and asking questions for clarifications also. Try to understand their perspective, intentions, and expectations and appreciate their efforts and courage to share their opinions with you. Responding to constructive criticism is to evaluate the feedback objectively and decide what to do with it. Not all feedback is equal valid, my friends, useful or relevant, so you need to filter out the noise and focus on the signal. Ask yourself, is the feedback factual, specific, or actionable? Is it based on observable behavior or subjective impressions? Is it consistent with your goals and values? Is it aligned with the standards and expectations of your role and context? Depending on your answer, you can accept, reject, or modify the feedback. Responding to constructive criticism is to respond constructively and politely to the person giving you feedback. Thank them for their input and acknowledge their points. Express your agreement, disagreement, or confusion in a respectful and assertive way without being aggressive or passive. Explain your reasoning, perspective, or challenging, and ask for suggestions, examples, or resources to help you improve. Show your willingness to learn and grow from the feedback and set realistic and measurable goals for yourself. Constructive criticism is to implement the feedback and follow up on your progress. Don't let the feedback go to waste or fade away in your memory. Take actions and apply the feedback to your work, behavior, or relationships. Monitor your results and seek feedback again to see if you have improved or need more guidance. Celebrate your achievements and reward yourself for your efforts. Share your outcomes and challenges with the person who gave you feedback and ask for their supports and recognitions. Responding to constructive criticism is to learn from the experience and move on. Don't dwell on the negative aspects to let them affect your self esteem or motivation. Instead, reflect on the positive aspects and what you have learned from the feedback. Identify your strengths and areas for improvement and use them as opportunities for growth and development. Recognize that criticism is not a personal attack or a sign of failure, but a chance to become better and more resilient. So be happy in your life and take positively any type of criticism. It may be unfair criticism or constructive criticism in your life. And thanks for watching my videos. And if you like my blogs, please share and subscribe my channel. Thanks again.